Hello, my name is Karen Hughes, and I'm the Domestic Violence Clinical Services Coordinator for the Life Crisis Center, and I want to welcome you to Life Crisis Today. I don't know about you, but I am thinking our society has become very hostile. We're not nice with each other. People get angry really easily. There's been increase in violence, and sometimes I'm there. I'm like a bystander, like going, "Oh my gosh, what do I do? Should I intervene? Should I not intervene? Will I be safe if I did?" Do we as a society need to do something to maybe help as a community to help change the tide of things? Well, that's what we're going to talk today. With me is Summer Miles, and she is our prevention programs coordinator. And we're going to be talking about that. How do we be a bystander? How do we as a community work to maybe decrease the sense of violence? Welcome, Summer.
Thank you for having me, Karen.
Oh my gosh, as I said, I really think our society is not very nice to each other.
We could do a little better on that front, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that statement, like, it takes a village, is true. I know that's a cliche, but if we actually did it, maybe things would change. You know, if we looked out for each other and spoke up when somebody was not being nice to somebody. And there is a way to be a bystander. So what do you think of all that?
Yeah, it takes a village. I think that's true in so many aspects of life. You typically hear it like raising kids or, you know, somebody goes through something, a hard period in their life. It takes a village to bring them back. And I think just in general, it's always good to have community support and whatnot.
Right.
It definitely makes a larger difference than what you could do as an individual.
So how could, as a community, do it? Or even why would it work? You know, why would community approach work?
Yeah, so the easiest way to prevent violence is to not be the aggressor, right? Okay,
yeah.
I do a great job at that. I don't create violence. I'm not the aggressor.
I can't imagine you doing that, so yeah.
I'm not the perpetrator, so I'm doing my part, right? That's all it takes. I mean, that's great, but I'm only preventing so much. I think, you know, stepping in as a community and being able to do more, how do I make a bigger difference than just not perpetrating violence? And I think we've kind of lost sight as a community and a society that you have a certain responsibility just as a human being to be a good person.
Right.
It takes a little bit more than just not causing harm to try and prevent harm.
Yeah.
We need to look at violence prevention on a larger scale, and to do this, I love the bystander method. I preach it all day long.
Yeah, you do.
But the bystander method, it really works and takes on a community approach because it doesn't target potential victims. We're doing that. We're in classrooms. We've identified, you know, different risk factors. We have after-school groups for at-risk youth. We're really working on that. We're trying to identify the signs of what it could take or, you know, patterns we see of victims of violence and how can we kind of get to them early on and try and prevent that from happening.
And it's not the victim's responsibility to keep everybody safe.
Correct. It's not their fault that they fall into a pattern and may, you know, experience violence at some point. So it doesn't target potential victims. So that's kind of, okay, check one. The second check mark that a community approach works better, it doesn't target potential perpetrators. Now, I don't know about you. If anybody can get me a room of potential violence perpetrators or aggressors, I would love to have a conversation with them. You know, share my thoughts on why we shouldn't be doing that and try and figure out why. But that's just not realistic. We're not going to get a room filled with people who are like, you know what, I think I'm going to perpetrate violence. Sure, I'll come to a training. Exactly.
Admit to it. Yeah, right.
So that's not realistic. The efforts target an entire community. Like I said, it's kind of picking up on that responsibility as a human being. See something, say something, do something safely, that sort of thing. And lastly, bystander intervention. Everybody has a role to play. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. There are different strategies that work towards different strengths. Really focusing on there is something that everybody could do, whether you are ready to, you know, confront that aggressor head on or maybe take a more backseat approach. There's something everybody could do, and that's really why I like the bystander method when it comes to community.
Okay, so where do we start with all this?
Starts with attitudes. Yep, that is the hardest part of it all. You know, you can get somebody to intervene, but first, their attitude has to change around it. We have to change the way we think about victims. There is no such thing as a perfect victim. Every victim looks different. We need to change our attitude around that, around changing attitudes around what sexual violence looks like. You know, again, it's not, well, this is sexual violence. You know, there's sexual violence is an all-encompassing term. We really have to be aware of what that looks like, even on the most minute kind of experiences.
Right.
I think that's where it starts, really just changing attitudes surrounding.
Right.
Yeah.
And everybody can do that.
Yes.
I can have a good attitude, but I can also then, if you're not having a great attitude, I can confront you on that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so when we say bystander, I mean, our thought process might be a little bit different because we're in this work every day. But when you hear the word bystander, what do you think of? What comes to mind? Those connotations?
Kind of like somebody who's on the edge watching something. Maybe a witness.
A witness, yeah. So when I'm, you know, in the colleges and working with sports teams and college students and high school students, they're like, oh, you're a witness. And then when I hear witness, I think of crime. So something bad has happened and, you know, you're not doing anything, but you were a part of it. You were there. You witnessed it. You were a part of whatever took place. And it typically gets a pretty negative, you know, a bad rap. So the definition of a bystander, and I'm going to read this word for word so I don't mess it up, but the definition of a bystander is an individual who witnesses emergencies, harmful events, or situations that could lead to a harmful event. And by their presence, they have the opportunity to either provide assistance, do nothing, or contribute to the harm. And sometimes doing nothing does contribute to the harm. So trying to change those attitudes surrounding bystander, we're going to flip it and make it positive, and we're going to encourage everybody to be a pro-social bystander. So that is, you know, the bystander, but that's when you do something. And
you said that word to me when we were talking about this. That was a new term.
Okay.
And so I was really surprised. Like, I thought I was in this for a long time. Like, oh, okay, that's a new one. What is a pro-social bystander?
Yep. So bystander, you know, you're sitting there watching, and you can do nothing, contribute to the harm, or step in. That stepping in is going to make you a pro-social bystander. Okay. So a pro-social bystander is somebody who does intervene with the intentions of positively impacting whatever is going on. So that's how we're trying to make those attitudes positive. We're all trying to be pro-social bystanders. That's kind of the goal here.
Okay. So how does somebody do that and become that pro-social bystander?
Before you could even step in to intervene in a situation, you have to recognize that something's going on first. This is kind of the first and the hardest thing. You got to recognize that something wrong is happening or something dangerous is going to happen. And I'm going to talk about that. We're going to come back to that in a second.
Okay.
Next is being asked. Somebody's way more likely to step in if they're being asked. You know, if I were to ask you, hey, I'm not comfortable going up by myself, can we go over there and kind of break up whatever's going on? You're much more likely to intervene if you're directly asked because you feel that sense of responsibility.
Right.
That doesn't always happen. We know that. Role modeling is another aspect. If I were to witness a positive pro-social bystander intervening, I'm much more likely to then go do it myself because I've seen it makes a difference. It was a positive experience for that person. It's a good role model behavior. And same thing if I were to witness a negative experience. I'm probably less likely to go ahead and intervene because I saw that it was a negative experience. So, you know, being a role model, having positive experiences, it helps other people to have confidence and have a positive experience. And the last kind of thing here to get somebody, before we even talk about how to intervene, to get somebody to intervene is group size. You'd think you're in a room filled with people. There's a lot of people. Somebody's got to intervene, right? There's actually a theory called the bystander theory. And it states the more people that are around, the least likely somebody is going to intervene because everybody has the same thought.
Somebody else is going to do it.
Somebody else is going to do it. Yep. We all are deflecting the responsibility of, you know, doing something. And there's plenty of people in the room to do it, or to deflect that responsibility too. So those are kind of the four things before you even intervene that are going to like cause somebody to intervene or start thinking about intervening. Now, I want to go back to recognizing that the situation is even
dangerous,
a dangerous situation, or something's not right.
Right.
You know, we all have those spidey senses, and
I call it the back of my hair, my
the
neck.
tingle.
Yeah.
Trust that gut feeling.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, you're wrong, and you intervene in something that doesn't need intervening. They're probably going to look at you weird, but at least you know everything's good.
Right.
You know, we said sexual violence, it's an all-encompassing term. There are a lot of actions, microaggressions, you know, grandiose acts of violence that fall under that term. I think of sexual violence, it exists on a continuum, right? So it's, and we look at it with frequency and recognition. So to recognize an act of sexual violence, the things you see on the news, they're the worst of the worst, you know. It's somebody jumping out of a bush.
Stranger danger.
Stranger danger, stranger rape, somebody jumping out of the bush and grabbing you, like that sort of thing. While that is probably like one of the worst scenarios of sexual violence somebody could encounter, it's not happening on an as frequent basis as things that are happening in our community on a daily basis.
Right.
And I want to say, we're not trying to say what is worse than another.
Right.
Every act...
Victimization is a victimization.
Exactly. Right. Everything on this scale could affect a victim greatly. And I don't want to dismiss that, but just we're trying to project like what a society believes to be worse than one another.
Right.
You know, catcalling, sexist jokes, things like that, they happen in our communities, on our teams, in our places of work, on a daily basis.
And as a woman, oh my gosh, since childhood we've heard these things.
Yes. Yep, and you're taught to just brush them off your shoulder. It's going to happen. So these smaller acts, they're happening on a much more frequent basis.
Yes, they are.
We're so desensitized to them, but all it does is say, by being desensitized and not responding and not calling it out, all we're doing is saying, okay, it's acceptable in society. And, you know, what's the next thing that we are going to call out? How bad is it going to get before we do call it out?
Like, I don't like that you say that to me.
Correct.
Yeah.
As simple as, we shouldn't be joking about this, or I don't appreciate comments like that. Right. Think about what you're really saying, what that means, things like that. You know, it's simple as calling it out. But when we don't call it out, we're saying it's okay in society, and we're paving a way for these larger acts to kind of get desensitized the way these smaller things have.
And it's also like grooming.
Yeah.
You get somebody that you're involved with, that little by little by little bit, and it's just...
Yeah. You know, what your boundaries
wrong?
Just keep getting pushed. What are we going to say no to?
Yeah.
So I think it's important to recognize kind of that scale of recognition and frequency being opposite of one another, an inverse relationship. We need to get comfortable calling out the smaller acts, definitely. And that takes some time, but...
Yeah. And if I hear somebody doing it to you and you don't call it out, I'm your friend, I can call it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So then, how do you call out these things from, you know, the more larger, inappropriate acts?
Right.
And I should say, context matters too, really. You know, if you were to talk about, like, unwanted touch, if somebody were to inappropriately touch me, how the community responds is going to depend on the scenario. If I'm in the grocery store on a Tuesday afternoon and somebody comes up and gropes me, that's wildly offensive. You know, I'm in jeans and a sweatshirt. Nobody asked for it, but that is wildly inappropriate, right? How people respond if it were to happen on a Friday night at a crowded bar scene, wearing probably something different. It's funny how the community responds to the same inappropriate act, but because of the context, it's one is viewed as worse than another.
Right. And it's the same
it's the same exact thing. Yeah. So how we are going to intervene in any instance, whether it's catcalling, whether it's, you know, acquaintance rape, anything like that, there's the 4 Ds of bystander intervention. A quick, easy way to kind of remember it, you know, keep it in your pocket is a quick tool of how am I going to interact when I see this happen.
Right.
The first one is delay. Well, I guess I'll get back to delay because we'll delay. The first one is going to be direct.
Okay.
You're directly going to walk up to the aggressor. I see what you're doing. Cut it out. It's not appropriate here.
Right.
Don't do it again. Absolutely not. Pretty
You're very straightforward with
very
it.
straightforward,
Right.
very direct. Yep. The second is going to be distract. I always say, like, if I were to see something happening at, say, like a local restaurant, walk up to the person, hey, I think we have the same class, or we're in the same class together. Do you know what that homework was? Or, hey, I think I recognize you from church.
Right.
Like, what did you think of last week? Like, something totally off the wall. Hopefully the person picks up that you're just trying to break the tension.
Right.
And worst case scenario, if they don't realize what you're doing, they're going to look at you like you have 4 heads.
Right.
But all you're doing is inserting yourself in a scenario and kind of telling
Even if you don't know that person, like, man, I have been looking at you and you look so familiar. How would I?
Yes, you're breaking the tension. You know, it's not an end-all, be-all to fix it. They could go right back to that same heated conversation. But you're doing what you can in that moment to break it up without directly saying, I'm breaking up whatever's going on here.
Right.
Delegate is another way to kind of be a bystander. If you're not comfortable inserting yourself in the position, bring in a person of, you know, maybe higher authority. I don't mean call the cops every time.
Right.
There's definitely a time and place to call the police, especially if an act is very violent and you witness violence happening. You can absolutely call the police then. But if it's not violence like that you're witnessing right then, calling the police could only escalate the situation, put yourself. If you say, hey, the police are on their way, I called the police. Well, now they're going to be mad at you. Now you're putting yourself in a position of danger. It could be involving a teacher, you know, HR, a boss, a manager of whatever facility.
Or if you're at a club, the bartender.
The bartender, bouncer, whoever. Just something who might be better at confrontation than you. I know I'm not. I would never directly intervene. So, you know, you can say, that's great. That's the most effective way. If I were to sit and listen to somebody say, you got to walk up to the person, I'm like, that's not happening. I know
That's not
it's
your
not going to
style.
happen
That's not
for
who
me.
you are.
Exactly.
Yeah. But there are those people who do feel comfortable doing that. So
There are.
Be yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
But you can also intervene in a different way.
Yes.
Yes.
And even if, you know, maybe you just don't have the opportunity to get somebody else involved, we're going back to delay.
Okay.
This isn't as effective because you're going to confront the person on the receiving end of violence kind of after it has happened. You know, so maybe you think you see a boyfriend and a girlfriend getting into it. She heads off to the bathroom. Maybe it's just following her to the bathroom, meeting her at the sink. Hey, are you okay? I saw what happened.
Right.
You know,
Do you need help going out the back, a different door?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, do you want me to call you an Uber? Do you have any girlfriends that could come meet you? Anything like that. Hey, life crisis exists. Do you want them as a resource? Do you want their phone number? Just something kind of after the fact, letting, you know, the person on the receiving end of that aggression know you're not alone.
Right.
I saw what happened. It's not okay. And, like, I can help you if you can't get help on your own kind of thing.
Right.
Or texting a friend the morning after, you know, you witness something like, hey, can we talk? I just want you to know that, like, what is being said to you isn't okay.
Right.
Something after the fact to offer support. You're not able to, you know, break up the tension or intervene in the matter.
Or it could be a very dangerous situation and you don't want to be in the danger too.
Yes. So that's like my biggest point. The idea is to do something and do something safely. If you were to go in, confront the aggressor in an act of violence, you know, people are swinging or whatever it may be, all you're doing is transferring that, like, potential violence onto yourself.
Right.
That's not helping the situation at all. It's probably escalating it, making it more dangerous. So the idea is to do something and do something safely.
Right.
Keeping yourself safe. If you're not keeping yourself safe, you're not doing anybody any good either.
Yeah. And there's some small things that you can do, or the direct intervening type of things. Yeah.
And that's why I really like the 4 Ds of bystander intervention, because I feel like it really it meets everybody's strong suits. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you could be that confident person who's ready to directly intervene,
Right.
or maybe you're not, and you're more of a, hey, these are resources I know in the community. Can I
Right.
help you out? I feel like it
Yeah.
really talks to everybody's strong suits, and it gives everybody an opportunity. You don't just have to be, you know, that confident person
Right.
to help
Right.
make a difference.
Do something safely is something you said.
Yeah.
Are there any other little statements that you'd like to use sometimes to remind yourself?
Do something safely. It doesn't have to be a grand, heroic gesture that you're going to see in movies.
Yeah.
That doesn't always help. It might cause a bigger scene. Those small, discreet, you know,
Yeah.
hey, I know you from somewhere. Like, the smaller things are going to make just as big of a difference
Right.
and keep
And you are
everybody
making a
safer.
difference.
You are making a difference.
Yeah.
So don't dismiss them. You know, sometimes the small, discreet acts are just as effective as
Right.
the big, heroic,
Yeah.
grandiose gestures.
Especially when people say to me, I wouldn't know what to do. I'm like, those little things make
Yeah.
a difference.
Yep.
And that's how, when you said pro-social community approach, those little things, you
Yeah.
are making it. You are part of the
Yes.
community. You are making a difference
Yep.
in your community.
Yep. You know, and you role model that small positive interaction. Somebody sees that, and then you
Right.
get comfortable doing those more smaller,
Right.
you know, same way on the sexual violence scale, people get comfortable with catcalling and sexist jokes. So it creates the way for them to do the, you know, more inappropriate gestures.
Right.
Same thing, you're role modeling these small positive interactions. It's going to pave the way
Right.
and create confidence, you know, doing some of the grander, more
Yes.
intervention tactics.
As you get more confidence, you feel like you got another skill, and
Yes.
okay, well, I did this last time. I can
Yep.
do another one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or assessing: do I need to be the grand one, or is it
Yes.
just a little?
Yeah.
Wait, this is not right. Yeah.
And it starts with recognizing it. It really starts with recognizing it. I think having that awareness of, oh, this is something going on, or getting comfortable calling out that catcalling and the sexist jokes, like getting comfortable with the smaller things,
Right.
and even having that awareness. And once I started in the work I do, now I pick up on everything, like
bet you
TV
do.
shows,
Yes,
social
yes.
media. I'm like, that is so inappropriate.
Yes.
Having that awareness itself just makes a difference, I swear. And
Yeah.
you feel more confident when you know what you're looking for and what is right, what's wrong, what society, well, this is okay, but you can't go further than this kind of
Right.
thing.
Right.
Having that awareness, you're making a difference.
Yeah. And we are all, as we said at the beginning, a part of the village,
We are a part of a village.
and we can make a difference.
You can make a difference, and you should try and be a good person. I
Yeah.
think everybody should have that responsibility. And I mean, if you've gotten this far watching, it's because you care.
Yes,
It's
yes.
because you care, whether it's background noise or whatnot.
Right.
I hope you picked up on something today and you feel that responsibility to be a good person
Yeah.
and to step in and do something.
Is there anything else we forgot?
I think that covers the bulk of it. Anything else would be, you know, we do more in-depth. We have different curriculums for high school students, for fraternity, Greek life, sororities, sports teams, college classes, people living in dorms, general public, workplace trainings, things like that. You know, we have curriculum for everyone to kind of go in depth about these topics and what that looks like, you know, in
Right.
their place of work or in their community. And if anybody listening is interested in those, I'd be happy to work with them
Yes,
and
that
get
is
them.
what you do.
That is what I do. That is my bread and butter, trainings
Yes.
and prevention, education, all
Right.
that.
Right.
My direct number is 410-749-8111, extension 106. If anybody listening is interested in any of those kind of more specified, in-depth trainings on this.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Well, thank you, Summer.
Thank you.
Lots of good information in this.
Good.
And I want to thank you for joining us. The Life Crisis Center has a lot of things we can offer. Sometimes we have folks like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do, or this happened to me. Where do I get help? Or my friend or my sister or my cousin, oh, this happened, and where do I send them? We have lots of resources. The first one is our hotline. Our hotline is available 24 hours a day, and the hotline number is 410-749-HELP. That's 410-749-4357. We are part of the 211 system. That's for information and referrals. We're part of the National Suicide Hotline. You can call 988 for that. We have people who help with getting protective orders if there's been domestic violence. We do counseling. We work with children who were abused, children who witnessed domestic violence, adults who may have been sexually abused as a child, adults of sexual assault and rape, adults of domestic violence. We also have a program for abusers of domestic violence. We call it the Abuser Intervention Program. We have the CASA program, which is court-appointed special advocates for the kids who are in foster care that might need an advocate to make sure that they're getting the services that they need. We also have the Regional Human Trafficking Program for this within the state of Maryland. So please do not struggle. Reach out if you need help, or if you're worried about somebody that might need some help. Reach out. We have lots of resources for you. I also want to thank PAC 14 for making this show available. Thank you.